A lot of fantasy gamers have a hard time being patient when it comes to stashing players, especially high upside players who could go off later in the season or who are very talented, who are dealing with a few things, maybe an injury or a situation that's limiting them now, but once they get on the field, there could be an opportunity for them to pop off. Also, news changes with these players off and on while they're being delayed. Jameson Williams is one of those players. We've been stashing him on IR all season, hoping for the comeback, hoping it sooner than later, trying to read the tea leaves from the news each week. We got some news back late yesterday from Dan Campbell saying that he's at least a month away. And you know what? We have some smart commenters on this channel that told us he was going to be back somewhere around Thanksgiving-ish because they live in the Detroit area and they heard about it through the news outlets. Kudos to those guys. But thinking about this from a long-term perspective, it's really what you want to do here. It really depends on the situation for your very own fantasy team. A lot of you guys had him stashed on IR, and you don't need to do anything with that IR spot. You don't have multiple players on the IR that you need to put there, or you don't have anybody you really want to pick up to put on IR. So really you're at a spot where you can just keep him there, chilling till he comes back, and you see what he can do. A lot of other people, he's on waivers, and he's sitting there, and you want to look at your roster, see you can drop for him. Remember, you got like 4, 5, 6 weeks now until he comes back, maybe longer. So we're looking maybe at the earliest Thanksgiving, probably a little bit past that, almost into November, could be into December. We don't know the timetable exactly. We're just guessing from the words Dan Campbell and everybody else is saying. His roster rate dropped by just 1%. And it's not a big dump off. And that's because a lot of people have him stashed on IR. They don't need to manipulate that part of their roster. And they're good with holding him there. If you have a player that you want to get rid of and you don't care, you drop him, pick up Williams, put him on IR, it's okay to do that. As long as you don't care about that player. More than likely, if you have to ask, should I drop this player to pick up Jameson Williams, then you probably shouldn't do it, because more than likely that player's getting you somewhat production, and you probably could use them somewhere down the line next few weeks, where Williams is a long-term risk, a long-term play that has a lot of upside. There's a tremendous amount of upside here, but the odds are mounting against him, and you don't want to hurt yourself trying to get that stash. But a lot of us, especially the bottom half of the league, if you're bottom half of the standings, you probably got a player you can probably drop for him that you don't care, pick him up, put him on IR. I can't really recommend it. I can't really tell you that. It's on your situation. If your situation dictates that and you really want him, and you have a player that's very liquid right now, that you don't care, and you're like, I'm going to do it. I can probably pick this player up anyways when waivers run next time anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Go do it. That's probably a smart idea. But remember, the odds are stacking against him because there's going to be less opportunity for him to prove himself, less transition time, and we don't know how long this is going to be. The other odds are, if we don't stash him, if we don't at least look at him or get him rostered in a few leagues, if you're in like 10, 20 leagues or whatever, then you might miss out on a player that might go off. The odds of him going off are getting less and less. Looking back at what he did at Alabama last year, caught 78 balls, 1,561 yards, and 15 touchdowns. That was his first year in the system. Just transitioned like that. 7 100-yard games. This dude has 4.3, 4.2 speed. So when he's back on the field, we don't know if he'll have that back this year. Probably will have something close to that. But this dude can burn. This dude can fly. This guy can stretch the field. When he's fully back to health, when he's back to being himself, he's going to be an air yards guy. They're going to have him stretch the field. They're also going to get him in situations when he can get yards after the catch. That is going to be valuable. I was hoping that he'd come back a little sooner, because DJ Chark's on IR, but more than likely DJ Chark's going to be back when he comes back. And it's going to be cool for the Lions because they're going to have 2 field stretchers on the field at the same time with 4.3 speed or more. And that's going to be interesting to watch with Amon-Ra back working the short to intermediate. So that'd be a fun offense with those 2 cooking, running routes. But honestly, the risks are mounting up with Jameson Williams. But there's also no risk if he's on IR. So if you already got him, you just have to monitor your situation. If you don't need to move him, you don't need to fiddle around with your IR spot, you don't have nothing to put there, then you don't really need to do anything. But if Jameson Williams is sitting on waivers, you don't want to drop something that's helping you out because you don't know how long this is going to be, and you can probably pick him up in the next few weeks. And his roster rate should drop slowly by the week. He should be on waivers more often in more leagues, so there'll be opportunities for you to get him later. You don't have to get him now. You can get him next week or the week after. The closer we get to the end of November, you need to start thinking about him more. And while we're in November, the odds are that we have players on the back end of our roster that we can drop for him is going to increase because we're going to know about some of these ancillary jabronis on the back end of a roster, and we're going to be like, this dude's trash. He's only getting me 9 points a game. That's not going to win me my league. I don't care. I can catch 9 points a game off the waiver wire any week anyways. I'm going to drop him, get Jameson, throw him on IR, have him for another 2 weeks there, see what he does. We'll go from there. And that's just how that's probably going to look like for a lot of you guys. If he's on waivers, you don't have to rush and get him. You can get him a couple weeks from now. If you want to get him and you have the space for him, you have the guy to drop, you don't care, you don't have to worry about it, then do it. If you have to ask about that player dropping, then you probably shouldn't do it because you're going to have a few weeks to make this decision. You're going to have a few weeks to figure out those players on the back end of your bench, what you want to do with them, those ancillary guys. And you're probably going to have some guys get hurt. You're probably going to have some attrition happen. And you're going to need some of those ancillary role players to be patch up, fill-ins here and there, especially when these bye weeks get really hot and heavy. But I still like Jameson Williams. I still think he's got a lot of upside. I just think the odds are mounting against him. And I just want to be clear that he's not as safe, even though he was never safe to begin with. The upside's still there. That's what I'm focusing on. But you really have to know what you're investing here. If you don't know what you're investing in when you're looking at a player like this, the speculation at the end of the season, if you don't invest in Bitcoin or anything like that, knowing about speculative assets and stuff like that, you may want to take some extra time to do some research on Jameson Williams when he comes back and all that, because there's a lot of risk here, but there's also a huge reward because we're talking about a top-end first-round pick with top draft pedigree from a top-tier school with top-tier production, with top-tier speed, and an offense that slings the ball all over the field. And there's a chance that he could help you out for a few games this season if he clicks instantly. And sometimes these players click like that. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it takes them a season. But sometimes they just go off, they step on the field, and they do their thing. We saw him do that instantly at Alabama. He might do this instantly in Detroit. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying I'm predicting that. I'm saying I'm speculating. And when I'm saying I'm speculating, I'm gambling. I am gambling a little bit. And when I'm gambling, I'm not gambling much. I'm gambling in IR spots, which is not really a gamble. That's what makes him such a good prospect to go after, because you're not risking much, and there's some upside here to speculate on that could go off for you. The downside's obvious. The downside is zero. The downside is nothing's going to happen, no fantasy points at all, but you're not going to be hurting at all if you lose out on him. He doesn't hit on you. If he fails, he's not going to fail because we're not expecting him to hit. We're expecting him really not to hit, but we know there's a slight chance that he can go to the moon. And we want those players that are free that can go to the moon, especially if you can stash them on IR. That's why we talk about Jameson Williams a lot, because he's free, could go to the moon, not likely to go to the moon, because players who are speculative to go to the moon don't always do so, especially in this situation right now. But if it does happen, you damn right you're going to want to share or two. It could be just a game. It could be 2 games. It could be in the fantasy playoffs. If I'm an undefeated team and I got a spot, damn right I'm throwing him in because I might need him. I might need him in my championship game. I might need him in the playoffs. I don't know. But this is what I'm talking about with Jameson Williams. He's a guy that could go to the moon and help you out. And that's about it. A cheap asset that you can pick up and just speculate on it. Speculative assets are totally different than guys that you're picking up off waivers to hope to put in your lineup, to hope to give you some added help when some guys get hurt. They're totally different. You're speculating on it. I just want to hammer that home because that's a different strategy. And if you're not used to that strategy and if you're not patient, then this is not for you because you'll probably get impatient and just drop them anyways, which means that you're going to hurt yourself because you could have had a different player or focused on a different player during that time. But let me know what you think in the comments below. What you think about Jameson Williams going forward, especially after this new news that came out. Let me know in the comments. Smash that like button on the way out. Helps the video in the algorithm. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'm dropping content left and right. I'm going to have some running back content here soon over some waiver wire guys for deeper leagues that I'm excited to share with you guys. And also, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.